together in unity when they opposed the same thing. They may have been at odds with each other from day one, but if they don't think the pastor is doing a good job, if they think so-and-so should be playing the piano or leading the choir or teaching Sunday school class, all of a sudden they become best friends. They're willing to set aside their differences in order to create a more united front against their enemy. That's what happened at Calvary. The religious leaders, the criminals, the rich, the poor, the Jews, the Greeks, the Romans, Pilate and Herod, all got along that day. They had one common goal: to eradicate righteousness, to destroy the teachings, the healings, and the ministry of Jesus. Yes, we see the way Christ was rejected. We see the way Christ was ridiculed. And we see the way Christ responded. As he hung on the cross for those 6 straight hours, he spoke 7 times. Luke records only 3 of his 7 statements: the first, the second, and the last. All 3 of the statements Luke informs us of involve Jesus interceding for his accusers. Isn't that just like the Lord? He didn't ask the Father to avenge him, didn't ask him to curse him or kill him. He asked him to forgive them, to let him off the hook, to excuse their offenses. And all his love was greater than their hatred, wasn't it? I know the devil thought he had Jesus right where he wanted him. He thought he could not only crucify him, but he also thought because of the actions of the crowd, he could get Christ to change his mind about wanting to redeem a world like that. Why would he want to help people who reviled him? But may I tell you, even while his hands and feet throbbed in pain from the nails that penetrated through his body, even as the crown lay so heavy on his head, even as the blood trickled down his face, even as their harsh words pierced his heart, he still ran back and he cried, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And my, what a lesson that is for us. If Jesus could say a prayer like that for his enemies, how can we be at odds with our brother and our sister? If he could say a pardon like that for the very ones who are behind his death, how can we be bitter towards one another? And my friend, people may have gossiped about you. They may have lied on you. They may have even told the truth on you. Amen. Come on now. Don't act like everything they said about you wasn't true. They may have done all of that, but you can still respond with the right spirit. You can still show them the love of Christ. You can be like Jesus. He extended his heart to the very ones who stabbed him in the back. And you may have been lied on, cheated, talked about and mistreated. They may be trying to kill you. They may be trying to crucify you. But you can tell them tonight, not only do I forgive you, but I'm praying God forgives you too. I said you need to forgive them because he forgave you. And isn't that right? We should have been punished, but instead we were pardoned. We should have been incarcerated, but we were emancipated. We were with fault, but we were offered forgiveness. Aren't you glad for that tonight? We ought to praise him for his unconditional love. Oh, I'm glad he loves us, aren't you? The songwriter said he's guilty of love in the first degree. Amen. I'm hurrying along. I'm getting ready to close. H.A. Ironside, he used to tell the story of one of the generals of Cyrus, that well-known king of Persia. This general had returned home from a campaign, was devastated to find that in his absence, his wife had been thrown in prison, charged with treason against her country. Her trial was to be held that very day. The general ran to the court of Cyrus. The guards brought in his own beloved wife. She tried to answer all the charges that were brought against her, but to no avail. Her husband, standing close by, heard the stern voice of the Persian ruler pronounce the death sentence. As those guards were getting ready to drag that woman's body out to behead her, that general ran forward, threw himself down at the feet of the emperor. He cried, "Oh, sir, not she, but me." He said, "Take my life and spare my wife." As Cyrus looked down at that general, he was so moved by that devotion and love for his wife that his heart was softened. He commanded the guards to let her go free, to be fully pardoned. H.A. Ironside said as that couple was on their way traveling home, they reminisced about the trip, about the events that had just taken place. That general looked at his wife. He said, "Did you notice the marble at the entrance of the palace?" She said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Did you notice the tapestry on the wall as we walked through the corridor into the throne room?" She said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Did you notice the throne on which the emperor sat? It must have been carved out of one lump of pure gold." He said, "Surely you saw that." She said, "No, I really didn't." He said, "Well, what did you see then?" That woman looked into the eyes of her husband, and she said, "I only beheld the face of that man who was willing to die for me." And well, isn't that what Jesus has done for you and I? I'm glad he came to the person courtroom of my soul. He visited me when I was on trial, when it seemed like the whole world was against me, when hell's jury would have labeled me guilty. Jesus took my case and he said, "Not he, but me. Not them, but I. Let me take their place. Let me stand in for them, and let me pay the debt." I want to tell somebody tonight, the advocate has settled your case out of court. He took the blame and the shame. He got you off on a plea bargain. He came to where you were, in the depths of sin and the blackness of your heart, in your worst condition. He came down so that we could get back up. He became the Son of Man so we could become the sons of God. And he's glad for that tonight. I'll tell you, when I look at power, that's all I can say. I'm not impressed with the political powers, with the hierarchy, with the aristocrats. I can only see the face of that man who was willing to die for me. How about you tonight? Hallelujah. We see not only a serious examination, he was guilty of declaring his lordship. Not only the substantial evidence, he was guilty of displaying his love. But lastly, consider the shocking execution. He was guilty of dying for the lost. Jesus' ministry was always under the microscope, wasn't it? People were watching his every step, analyzing his every move, waiting for him to slip up, waiting for him to make a mistake. You ever felt that way before? Like people are keeping a close eye on you, waiting to catch you doing something you shouldn't be doing, investigating your life. Anybody ever been there? Amen. Well, that's what they did to Jesus. They even tried to use that adulterous woman against him. The Bible said they caught her in the very act. Really, they didn't care about catching her, did they? They were wanting to catch Jesus. They wanted to entrap and entangle him with the law of Moses. Let me tell you, every time they backed him up into some religious corner, he was able to fight his way out with true theology. That is, until we arrive here in our text tonight, they thought they had finally caught him. Little did they realize the fact that they arrested him, took him to trial, and passed the death sentence upon him.